The year was 2006. YouTube was a very, very different place, almost unrecognizable from what we have today. In modern times, we have content that appeals to people of all types and all ages, with an entire separate app and website dedicated just to children's content. However, back in the day, children weren't being catered to on this platform, so not many videos regarding child-friendly things were available. But this didn't stop children of the 2000s and early 2010s to search up their favorite characters and video games on the platform. Unfortunately, this would lead them down a dark path of fetish porn using their favorite characters. What is dubbed now as the original Elsagate is much more than just that. These are the sins of Kphoria. Kphoria. A name that brings back a flood of disturbing memories from days on the internet past. Many people remember this channel from their childhood as it was basically impossible to escape and had a stranglehold on YouTube's algorithm, with the channel amassing 312 million views throughout its lifetime. Many people completely forgot about this channel's existence, but after whispers of its name have arose in recent years, more and more people have spoken out as to how disturbing, and in some cases, mentally detrimental this channel was to them. Many people have reached out to me regarding this channel, and how, in some ways, it stunted their sexual development. But you may be wondering, what even was Kphoria? What did he do? Well, in this video, I set out to answer exactly that. Now, unfortunately, Kphoria's first video is kind of hard to track, as the original YouTube channel has since been terminated. However, what I think is more important than how he started are the videos that brought him to fame. The most recognizable Vore videos Kphoria released were those using Sonic the Hedgehog characters. Sonic being a character whose online fandom precedes him. Sonic fans have a lot of negative perception around them, and, well, for good reason. But Kphoria only made his reputation worse. Many of these videos included the 12-year-old Amy Rose eating characters and talking about how full she is, among other common themes within this genre of pornography. To my knowledge, it was always the female characters who'd be eating people. When looking back at these videos, you'll find that most of them are animated. Poorly, but, still animated. There's a very distinct art style that strikes terror into the hearts of those who grew up on YouTube back in the early 2010s. All the characters stand at this weird angle with a lot of reused poses and limbs, among other things. To really understand Kphoria, we need to first understand what Vore is. Luckily, local Vore specialist Scumbagovich is here to explain it all to you. Take it away.
Welcome everyone to a mini bad art history lesson. Vorophilia is a fetish pertaining to finding pleasure in watching someone being swallowed whole, being swallowed yourself, or being the one doing the swallowing. The term originates from the Latin verb vorare, meaning to swallow or devour, and the Greek word philia, meaning an abnormal liking for something. Vore, as we understand it online, popped up in the 90s on the World Wide Web. Where exactly it began and who exactly was the first to discover their fondness for being swallowed whole, we'll never know. But even back in 1997, there was an entire website dedicated to the practice of Vore, known as Vorecom. And throughout the 90s and 2000s, Vore consistently remained among the most popular of the internet-based fetishes. This fetish is incredibly popular within the furry community and is widely understood to have been brought to most people's attention via the internet. Obviously, Vore is impossible to safely carry out in real life. Hence, people rely on literature and artwork to meet their needs. And Vore in itself has quite a few subgenres. For instance, there's a huge overlap between Vore and macrophilia, which is a fetish for interacting with giants. Typically, giant women or giantesses. And the Vore fantasy often involves being swallowed whole by a big giant lady. There are also a lot of specifically abdomen-based interests that aren't necessarily Vore. Inflation, the act of inflating someone's body, usually to the point of extreme distension, are very popular among vorophiles because it has a very similar imagery and appeal. As with all fetishes, inflation varies wildly for those who like it. Some prefer just a mild amount of distortion to the figure, while others prefer seeing people blown up to the size of a house. And if you continue to do a deeper dive into this topic, you may also encounter a fetish known as stuffing, or eating to the point where there is a visible distortion in one's figure. On the list of these fetishes, stuffing is among the more realistic, and even though it can still be harmful in real life, it doesn't require you to defy your biology. Some who enjoy stuffing also enjoy weight gain. The list goes on. You'll see oftentimes that these fetishes have a tendency to either lead to each other or to significantly overlap, and as you may notice, people who have one of these fetishes tend to have more. The most common visual element of Vore is showing the distended stomach of the Vorer. Often, it's depicted as unrealistically huge with attention paid to the squirming and squelching sounds of the victim trapped within. Now, oftentimes, this fantasy is not centered around killing another person by eating them. The person inside the stomach is not being dissolved in stomach acid, and the person doing the eating is not rupturing any of their skin or muscles or intestines in the process. Now, as with all things, there are more violent and masochistic iterations of this fetish, but that's not what we're looking at today. The vore that Kphoria specializes in is of an incredibly cartoony and unrealistic nature, but that doesn't make it any less harmful to the children watching it en masse.
But you may be wondering, what the hell even happens in the majority of these videos? Well, they all tend to follow a somewhat similar structure. Upwards of two characters will be with each other in frame, either talking or in some sort of conflict. Eventually, a character's stomach will rumble or they'll mention that they are hungry, and then proceed to eat the other character fully. This sometimes can be out of revenge, an attack, or even a consensual eating. After the character is eaten, the eater's stomach will be very large and start to gurgle. The eater will often cartoonishly burp as the victim squirms around inside of them. A sort of X-ray shot is shown of the inside of the character's stomach. From there, the videos often end, and that's it. Rinse and repeat. However, there are a lot of varying videos like the Kphoria series, videos featuring an original character who is a vore-based superhero. She flies around and eats criminals, and then just straight up digests them, killing them, which is definitely a little more grim than the average videos, where you don't really get to see what happens to the characters after they're eaten. There were also a ton of videos that were made using video game sprites, often those being Mario characters. Some of these videos were vore-based, while lots of them were just random little joke videos, which was an odd break from the fetish-based videos of the channel. There was also a Mario version of Ahmed the Dead Terrorist, a character from Jeff Dunham's Puppet Show. These videos often sourced sound from the Jeff Dunham Show, and were their own little self-contained videos. Not only that, but there was also a series called Ghostbuster Luigi, who, to my knowledge, was its own self-contained story about Luigi being a Ghostbuster, and wasn't fetish art. There were a ton of videos, but they usually followed pretty similar structure, aside from a few such as Water Balloon Belly, one of Kphoria's most popular videos, which featured two little girls, an older and a younger sister. They're sitting outside on a hot day, but don't have a pool or any way to cool down. Eventually, the younger sister has the idea to use her older sister as a swimming pool, by means of getting eaten and then the girl swallowing a hose and filling it up with water, effectively making her insides a pool. They do exactly that, but not without the girl's clothes ripping, exposing her skin. This video was one of the bigger ones on the channel, and to my memory at least, was recommended a lot on random videos. I personally always wondered what Kphoria even meant as a name, and through my research I learned that according to Kphoria himself, it stands for King of Euphoria, but other people have gathered that it likely stands for Keith's Euphoria, Keith being the name of the man who created the madness. According to Keith, he was born on December 14th, 1984 in Canada, meaning that Keith is now a 38-year-old man. When he first started his channel, he was 22 years old. He's also on the autism spectrum, which people use as a defense of his character, but you'll soon see that that excuse falls flat. From what I could find, Kphoria made a lot of his accounts in 2006 on a ton of different websites, DeviantArt being the most infamous and recognizable one. Outside of YouTube, DeviantArt as a website is plagued with a horrible public perception. Since so much of the art and community there is just weird, fetishy stuff, people just kind of assume the entire website is that way, which sucks for the genuinely amazing artists that are on there. However, DeviantArt wasn't the only website that Keith posted his notorious art on. A notable website that Keith used frequently was Eka's Portal, or Arion.com, a very explicit vore website, including art and forums for those who enjoy this type of art. Eka's Portal itself is awash in a lot of controversy, but we'll touch on that later. This channel was so incredibly present in the YouTube algorithm of the time, with it being very hard not to come across these videos when typing in innocent search terms of Mario or Sonic. Its prevalence was absolutely insane, but I was personally shocked to see how many other kids bore witness to this channel in their youth. Something that made this even more clear to me was when watching a video by YouTuber Kylie. There was a part where she was discussing a Mario-based YouTube poop that had gone missing. During the search, people ended up finding the thumbnail via means of the Wayback Machine. Lo and behold, Kphoria is right there alongside the lost creepypasta. This rings true to me how ever-present and unescapable this channel was for a kid who just wanted to watch their favorite videos about Mario or Sonic or anything like that. This channel wasn't only based on video game characters though. There are many other types of videos on this channel of varying nature, some being kind of furry adjacent characters, others not even being vore at all, and of course most stomach-churning videos using young child characters for their fetish art. Upon realizing this and further confirming it, a massive pit in my stomach emerged, with a grim realization that Kphoria was much darker than I once thought. From my memory, many of the comments on these videos were from very young children, just trying to find some videos pertaining to their favorite video game characters. These comments definitely varied in nature. Some people were confused, scared, or just downright disturbed, asking why these characters were eating each other whole. What I find so interesting about the Kphoria channel is the fact that he uploaded videos that had nothing to do with Vore, and were just some pretty standard Flash animations. To some, this feels like a sneaky way to expose as many people as possible to his other videos, but the validity of that theory is definitely debated. Kphoria wasn't only known for his Vore art, but he was also known and loved for his art bases for different characters that he would upload on DeviantArt. Why you would want to use these bases is completely beyond me, but a lot of people do. With full and complete transparency, I was someone who watched a lot of Kphoria videos in my youth, and personally, it exposed me to way more inappropriate content than I should have ever seen. I personally don't remember what my first Kphoria video was or what led me to find them, but I absolutely do remember seeing a lot of the videos alongside other very similar ones. Now, this might sound strange to those who weren't on YouTube back in the years of 2011 to 2013, but Vore content was actually very widespread, usually using video game or cartoon characters. Most of the videos weren't full animations like Kphoria, but more so just these videos of people taking a PNG of a popular character, putting it in MS Paint, and using the circle tool around its stomach, increasing it in size as the video went on. Sometimes a cartoony rip of the clothing would occur, leading the character's bare stomach to be exposed. These videos also often had text above the characters, pertaining to their thoughts and feelings while whatever was happening was happening. I genuinely cannot tell who was making these videos, and for what audience, as I just don't understand how you could find this attractive, but hey, I mean, that's the internet for you. I'm not being as hard on this content as Kphoria, as I feel it was ultimately less harmful to those who viewed it at the end of the day. Some of these videos are actually still up to this day, and new ones are still being made. The difference is usually what the means of production is on these new videos. Instead of using MS Paint, many of these people use apps like Gacha Life. That's an entire rabbit hole on its own, but I think it warrants coverage someday. But again, video for another time. I think it goes without saying that parental guardianship should absolutely be a thing when children use the internet. Hell, I'm personally of the opinion that children until a certain age shouldn't have internet access at all, but regardless of that, many people will go to blame the parents solely and not the people who made the offending content. Yeah, the parents are absolutely to blame, but the people who uploaded explicit content with children characters easily accessible to children are also absolutely to blame. Many people question why this content existed in the first place. Why was Vore so popular on YouTube, and why didn't YouTube do anything about it?
The simple answer is, fetish content is accessible all over YouTube, and a large amount of it isn't even overtly sexual, although it is very clear what it's appealing to. But if YouTube doesn't see nudity, then its detection bots have no reason to take the video down, and those who are watching this who have sought it out themselves are obviously not going to report it. And this is a bit of an anomaly in itself, because in order to find these videos, you have to use very specific fetish search terms. It's a weird lapse in YouTube's community guidelines, but a lot of explicitly fetishistic videos actually are age restricted, either by the guidelines themselves or the uploader whose intent is not for children to see it. And Vore is probably kinda popular on YouTube for similar reasons to the original Elsagate videos. Bright thumbnails with recognizable characters doing odd and alluring things is a perfect way to get an impressionable, curious child to click on your video. And it seems very likely that the vast majority of Kphoria's most popular videos were not directly searched for, but rather found because they shared the same search terms as otherwise completely innocent, child-friendly content.
While some Kphoria videos were really popular, despite having nothing to do with video game character search terms. Videos like the water balloon one mentioned earlier, alongside another kind of subgenre of these videos, being the B3T3 animated videos. These had a different and admittedly much better looking art style, but retained the same animation style. Turns out, these were actually animated versions of fetish art made by another DeviantArt user by the name of Brain3x3. Just like Kphoria, Brain3x3 had an Arion.com account alongside an e-hentai page. When visiting said page, you'll notice the art's tags, most of which you'd expect to see, like Vore, furry, and pregnant. However, right alongside those is what seems to be a majority of the art made by this person used really, really young children, toddlers mainly, partaking in Vore. It's not the average of a character looking like a small child but then being like 1,000 years old. No, these are straight up, plain as day little girls. Characters from children's media appear here too, such as Boo, the little girl from Monsters Inc., DW from Arthur, Dee from Dexter's Lab, among others. Interestingly enough, these depictions of these already young children are seemingly aged down in this art. While searching further, I realized that through means of searching through some Vore forum posts on Reddit, a user claims that Ekka's portal /Arion.com is rife with Vore featuring children. I didn't check myself since this whole research has already done enough damage to my psyche, and I'm not trying to lose my mind, but I do trust these people as they are boots on the ground experiencing this art. This explicit art goes beyond the levels of Brain 3 times 3, as at the very least, he never drew the children without clothes on or anything of that nature. On Eka's portal, moderation isn't very prevalent, so a lot of illicit material slips through. That is to say, if you, for some reason, want to search this all on your own, I highly recommend that you stay off of this website. Now that you know what kind of content Brain 3 times 3 made, let's go back to Kphoria. Kphoria used a lot of Brain 3 times 3's art and animated it, and again, the majority of said art featured little girls. Many of the plots remained pretty similar to your average Kphoria stuff, but some had some more strange and gruesome plots, with at least 2 separate videos being about a girl eating her baby sister. Quotes from the video like, "This feels pretty good, so filling and satisfying. Heh now I'm an only child again. No more having to share anything with that annoying little brat," are just so weird, and for me personally are very off-putting. There's a very specific way that Vore and general stomach expansion themed art is written, and it's kind of universal, and once you pick up on it, it's impossible not to see permeating most iterations of this art. You know, it's one thing when the characters are portrayed as adults. It's weird, it's wacky, it's maybe even a little off-putting depending on who you are, but it's harmless. But when these characters are made little children, for seemingly no other reason than a sick and twisted fantasy, it makes everything so much worse. Keep in mind, these videos are on YouTube. These videos aren't age restricted, they're just up there for anyone to see. I personally didn't realize the level of pure fuckery that we're dealing with when researching Kphoria. A detail I slightly mentioned earlier was the inappropriate level of little girls used in the main Kphoria videos. Most of them portray them doing childish things like taking a gymnastics class together, or being in school, or cheerleading. Therefore, my question from earlier still stands. These people make art of adult women. Like, clearly, they enjoy doing it and they're attracted to them. So like, why use little girls? Why portray them in situations that could be swapped out for older characters? Or why portray erotic content of innocent childhood actions? Upon realizing how much of this person's art used kids as subjects, I immediately felt a sense of doom that made me realize that this entire case is much more sinister than I thought going into this. My perception was always that of remembering this channel as a weird, kind of awkward memory, and having a slight idea of the mental effects that it had to people of my generation. But realizing that the channel that exposed so many kids to inappropriate fetish content also produced content using children as the subjects to their fetishistic desires is disheartening. It truly is, and it only gets worse when you actually hear the stories of those affected. I asked my community if they had any experience with this kind of content in their youth, and people reached out, sharing their stories. Here they are. This first person doesn't want to reveal their name, but they'll be referred to as Spooki.
It was around the time when it was the Sonic game that had like Sonic turn into like a werehog or whatever he was called. When I was younger, I really liked werewolves, like the concept. And this was also around the time my aunt got me a tablet for like Christmas. If you know anything about unrestricted internet access, I don't exactly remember how. I just got one video. It was like Sonic was running down a hill and he trips and falls right in front of Amy, and Amy miraculously bores Sonic. And I saw that video and I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I just started watching more of his videos. I didn't understand what Vore was at the time. I didn't know what Vore was. Whole like brony stuff, like I saw Smile HD, I saw it, thought it was weird, and then I just kept watching stuff like that because I thought it was weird, and I thought if I kept watching I would understand it. I was like that one kid that would actually sit down and watch documentaries about stuff, because I just wanted to learn. I don't remember a lot from him. I just mainly remember his Sonic ones. I know he did a werehog one. I didn't realize he still uploaded it today, and he made a remaster a couple months ago of that werehog video. I was like, damn. I didn't really know a lot about Vore and like fetishes and stuff. I think when I watched those videos, YouTube did its thing and started requesting me more fetish videos, but it wasn't just Kphoria, it was other people. It was like SFMs of My Little Pony videos and like other cartoons and stuff. It branched out to more fetishes and stuff, mainly like blueberry inflation, which if you know anything from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, then you know feet and like just a lot of those, like the top contenders and stuff like that. I kept watching those videos. After we were done moving to another place, my tablet just decided to die, so I didn't really have access to my tablet. And for a good while, I didn't have YouTube for a while. And then as I got older and started learning more about fetishes, I was like, what the fuck? I wasn't like shocked, it was just more of a realization like, oh, I watch this stuff. Like I said, there's like two types of people that come out of who used to watch Kphoria. People who just look back at it and see it as weird, and then people who gained that fetish because of him. I didn't, but I do realize it might have been a gateway to weird stuff that I'm into.
I hope you see how serious this entire situation is and how incredibly important it is for children to not be on the internet, because inevitably they will be exploited. It's horrible in every capacity, yet people still defend people like Kphoria, saying that his audience is adults only and that he's unaware of any children in his audience. But as you'll soon see, that's completely false. Keith knows his fans are children. In a video parodying the 80s Sonic the Hedgehog TV show, Sonic breaks the fourth wall in a line saying, "I think I can explain everything to you guys." And you there at your computer watching this instead of doing your homework. The fact that people defend him saying anything otherwise is just denial. One look at the comment section before he disabled them made it clear who was watching these videos. In fact, literally every single person I've spoken to regarding this channel was a child when they watched it, not a single adult or even teenager. They were children from the ages of 6 to 10 generally. It's disgusting. In this same exact video, Sonic runs through the set pieces of prior videos that Kphoria has made, those being the ones that use characters from the Sonic franchise, and he explains what Vore is in a way to make it easily understandable to the audience. Sonic explains that Kphoria's videos are known as euphoria, a compound word of Vore and euphoria. He then goes on to directly say, "Vore is a fetish for people who like to fantasize about eating or being eaten by other people. Plus, it appeals to viewers who like girls getting huge, round bellies, since they find it sexy." There it is. Spelled out for you, clear as day, right there. For anyone using the defense of, oh, he might just be making these videos for fun with no sexual intent, you're wrong. Unequivocally wrong. I need to make it clear, since people often don't realize that in videos like this, I'm not trying to criticize Vore or weird fetish art in general. Not at all. Sure, yeah, it is weird, but who really cares? If you don't like it, don't look it up. The whole entire problem with this is the content being knowingly shown to children, and using characters that children are fond of. Having lewd art of cartoon characters is also something there isn't an inherent problem with, but it all stems from where it's posted and who it's marketed towards. Now here's the thing, it would be one thing if Kphoria videos just used cartoon characters who were generally seen to be adults, and if not that, used child characters who don't really resemble real-life children in the slightest, like Amy Rose. In my opinion, it's still pretty gross and weird, but the argument can be made that it's ultimately harmless. However, as you know, Keith's lust for euphoric Vore didn't stop at non-human child characters. I've searched through a lot to find information, and let me tell you, I found a lot. Something I found interesting was an archived Ekka's Portal forum, where some freak in 2024 created an AI chatbot of the little girl who eats the baby from the Kphoria X Brain 3x3 video. What's actually pretty great to see is that people in the comments are responding to it like, what the hell, that's a 7-year-old girl. So at least some members of the forum are aware of how horrible some of this art is. Clicking on the AI gives this disturbing line of opening dialogue, read out by this creepy-ass voice, likely being the person who made it, which makes total sense. On the bright side, this chatbot has since been taken down, and I wasn't able to archive the voice in time, which in my opinion is definitely a good thing. Now, I looked through a bunch of archived 4chan threads discussing Kphoria, and so many people share their experience being very familiar to what we heard earlier, further corroborating Leo's story. I believe I found out what Vore is before even that. I blame Kphoria. He introduced me to this up fetish where people are literally eating another person and digesting them, but he can't make anything good despite that. Fucker is the worst of both worlds. I hate my life and I hate this fetish.
Be like 9 years old, looking at videos on YouTube of my favorite Nintendo characters. Kind Kphoria shit. Wonder why my PP was getting long and stiff. It was all downhill from there.
I was 8 years old when I discovered Vore. Like some of you folks, Kphoria was my gateway drug into this cursed fetish. I liked round bellies before I discovered Vore. At the time, the only two ways I could find women with round bellies was through inflation, stuffing, fat, or pregnancy. I mostly searched for pregnant bellies on Google to see what I could find. Kphoria just so happened to be one of the videos that got recommended to me. Vore filled my needs pretty damn well at the time. Hindsight is 2020. Looking back, I wished I didn't click on his videos. Vore is a fetish I truly despise having.
God, Kphoria's stuff was so trash too, but unfortunately it's what also got me down this degenerate road.
I stumbled upon the fetish first when I was like 7 or 8. I was a curious science-obsessed kid who got a funny feeling when he thought about going inside the human body. Then, when I got free-reign internet access, I looked up something like people inside the human body/stomach, and it led me towards a dark rabbit hole. It started with finding some stray Kphoria videos on Google Video, but even young me knew the quality was shit. But I couldn't stop watching them, because they were the only thing that really gave me that funny feeling. Afterwards, the fetish lay dormant till late middle school/early high school, where I found DeviantArt and discovered Carbo, Metal Forever, and Kphoria, and my Vore/belly fetish was sealed in stone. The only regret I have regarding this fetish is the fact that I discovered it so early, and so long before I discovered normal porn. So my mind is fucked, and has Vore/stomach stuff implanted as its primary method of arousal. So it's much harder for me to get myself by normal sex stuff.
The fact that any child can just look up Vore on YouTube or DeviantArt and find unrestricted Vore content is a genuine problem. Hell, back when Kphoria was a thing, you didn't even have to know what Vore was. It'd just recommend itself to you and suck you into the rabbit hole.
Considering what I've read about Kphoria from other people, I doubt he gave a shit. He seemed pretty autistic. Hell, probably enjoyed it. In those ancient times, I was way more centered on human content. Real talk, same. I always liked his Brain 3x3 comics videos more. Helped that they have better autonomy and art style than his own garbage. Still don't know if he ever got permission for those or if he stole them from his channel. I usually preferred his content involving humans as well before slowly giving into my inner degeneracy. I still like humans, but now I jack it to furries too, obviously, though I still have limits. They have to be anthro. If they're too animal-like, it turns me off. Like I'm not into feral or Pokemon unless anthro, stuff like that. A similar note, looking back now, a lot of Brain 3x3 stuff disgusts me, and a lot involves children too, which is alarming. I also heard, and I cannot confirm if this is true or not, so take it with a grain of salt, but apparently it turns out Brain 3x3 is actually a massive degenerate. Big surprise, right? His family found out about it, disowned him, and now he lives on the fucking street or something. Can't confirm or deny, as I said, so take that information however you want. As for Kphoria himself, all I know is that he got wiped off YouTube, but got a play button before he did. Kinda funny, but also fucked.
These accounts are incredibly saddening to me, as so many of these people feel a great lament towards their situation and interests. No one chose to be into Vore. For many people, it was just the result of their internet usage as a child. I was personally the same way growing up. Granted, I'm not into Vore, but I barely dodged a bullet with that one. I watched most of Kphoria's videos as they showed up a lot in my recommended. I watched them on my own or with my brother, and we always thought it was just funny and weird, but there was absolutely an alluring pull to it. There was a fascination with this content and its bizarre nature that really did have an undeniable pull. Through Kphoria, as mentioned earlier, I was exposed to way more than just amateur Vore videos on YouTube. A pretty broad roster of almost explicit stories and cartoons that just confused my young mind. Kphoria was truly a gateway into more explicit art, just from the direct recommended videos. I remember finding pregnancy fetish videos, first being art and then transitioning into actual videos of real-life women. Same goes for the inflation videos, and weight gain stuff. Started off animated, became real. I won't go into detail, but there was a lot you could find when watching Kphoria. Let's leave it at that for now. Another thing I found while browsing 4chan was an incredibly fascinating thread telling a story of an incident where a single troll effectively ruined Kphoria for a while. To summarize, Kphoria was the king of his subgenre back in the day, with tons of ardent supporters defending his every action. Now, since Kphoria was a provider of art bases, the Kphoria style started to be spread across the internet, with more and more people seeing it throughout their communities. However, one user was not a fan of this art style and the spread of it, so he decided to do something about it. He called himself Curing Cancer Comic, but made a couple other usernames. According to this thread, he started off his attack as just messing with people who traced art, using YouTube and DeviantArt's copyright rules. After messing with said people, Curing Cancer Comics, who will just be referred to as Triple C going forward, figured out the source of all the art that he's been attempting to get rid of. Triple C runs a reverse image search on Kphoria's character builders. He apparently finds that this art, which everyone knew as Kphoria's original style, ended up being revealed to be that of an 8th grader who posted these designs in the early 2000s. This was because he wanted to use these character builds for a video game that he wanted to create when he grew up. Again, take everything with a grain of salt, but according to this anon, Triple C leaked this information to the internet. Apparently, as a response to this action, Kphoria completely deleted his entire DeviantArt gallery and attempted to move to Ekka's portal. Ekka's portal completely denied him from posting his art. Ekka's portal. a wretched hive of scum and villainy, didn't accept Kphoria. At this point, CCC is just warming up and proceeds to terrorize the Kphoria fandom further. Fans believe that Kphoria was the victim of a false flagging attempt, and eventually, CCC made a bunch of spam alt accounts to further mess with these people. He got to the point of impersonating people in the Kphoria community and sent out hate mail pretending to be these people. By doing this, he effectively turned the community against itself from the inside. Eventually, people did catch on, but not without some damage being done. To quote this thread directly, CCC makes obvious ripoff of Kphoria's OCs. Then when he gets pissed, uses Kphoria's same argument for bases against him. 3 to 4 months of producing enough man-child Spurgout to power the Monsters Inc. city for 1,000 years. Finally, starts to lose interest, until he found something new. Eventually, CCC found the original creator of the bases that Kphoria took. That 8th grader is now a college student, and his name is Bobby. Joining forces with Bobby, CCC files a copyright claim against Kphoria on YouTube. This ended in Kphoria being temporarily taken off of YouTube. To fight the copyright claim, Kphoria had to submit a bunch of sensitive personal information, including full name, address, and phone number. CCC sends all this information over to Kphoria and explains that if he doesn't remove his infamous art bases by New Year's Day, CCC would release the Kphoria docs on 4chan. A couple days before Christmas of 2011, CCC live streams himself calling Kphoria anonymously. It's then learned that Kphoria, who at this point was like 30 years old, still lived with his parents. This leads CCC to call Keith's father, and poses the father of a preteen girl who claimed Kphoria was trying to elicit explicit photos from. The father is completely dumbfounded, but is told by CCC to look at the art Kphoria makes as proof of his predatory ways. Eventually, Kphoria gets on the phone and CCC introduces himself, leading to an explosive reaction. Eventually, January 1st comes and Kphoria doesn't delete his bases. It just so happens that CCC is a man of his word, and releases all of the information onto 4chan. The family receives a ton of phone calls and pizza orders until they have to move homes. Just for a clear disclaimer, I am not endorsing these actions. I think that doxing is truly terrible and should not be done by anyone. CCC gained great power over this circle following these events, with people deleting all of their bases in fear of getting doxed or attacked by CCC. Now, the thing is, from what I can find, none of what was just discussed was archived or recorded at all. However, I was able to find CCC's WordPress.com website, which then led me to find some old videos exposing bad things in the DeviantArt community. Here's a clip of him discussing Kphoria.
Kphoria was called out on being an art thief. He knew it was true and he ran away. But that damn DeviantArt has like some stupid, you can like reactivate your account in 30 days thing. That's bullshit. They shouldn't have included that. If I had gotten on Kphoria a year earlier, his account would not be here. But now I own all of his artworks, so we're gonna have fun with Kphoria all over again. I could get rid of his YouTube channel if I wanted to.
So after all of this occurred, Kphoria continued to upload on YouTube until 2017, when his channel was permanently terminated for violating YouTube's community guidelines. However, within this time, Kphoria returned to DeviantArt and started posting them until November 22nd of 2022, when the Kphoria account was deactivated. The reason being is that too many of his posts were getting taken down from DeviantArt. In November, Keith opened an Itaku account alongside an already existing Odyssey, which are two art posting websites, where Kphoria re-uploaded his DeviantArt activity and most of his videos. In August of 2023, Kphoria created a new YouTube channel. This channel features the majority of the old Kphoria videos, many of which being remastered uploads, alongside some brand new videos. As of the writing of this video, this channel only has 2.27 thousand subscribers, with the top video being Amy 8 Sonic Remastered sitting at only 37,000 views. Something that's different from the old Kphoria channel is that the comment section is fully disabled, leaving Keith to receive no backlash, which, if you couldn't tell, is something that he doesn't handle very well. With Kphoria's new channel not bringing anything near the old numbers, and his impact being lessened by the lack of DeviantArt to expose new viewers, effectively, his impact feels as if it's not really in effect anymore. The scars of early Gen Z regarding this channel are plain to see, but the next generation may not have the displeasure of witnessing Kphoria in their formative years. You may think that this is over. Kphoria has nowhere near the same algorithmic appeal as they did back in the day, but unfortunately, Gen Alpha has their own versions, and they are an absolute plague on this platform. The main one being a degenerate by the name of Qzmek. Qzmek was a YouTube channel with over 1 million subscribers that would upload censored fetish porn, usually Vore or inflation related. a lot of the porn was in the form of interactive games, especially this one here by Draconic Syntax, a game featuring an orange Samus knockoff running around a space station eating enemies. Kphoria used and abused this game since it got a lot of views. Soon he realized how to use the Ultra Key tool and recalled the girl to have Samus's appearance. From there, videos with titles along the lines of "No Samus, they're not food" started popping up, with mild variation across the uploads. The videos themselves would include gameplay of the fetish games being censored when they had to be, but otherwise being shown in pretty much their full capacity, no pun intended. The level of explicit content was somewhat inconsistent, with some videos featuring more softcore stuff, while others showing gameplay of some pretty hardcore stuff. Kphoria wouldn't display much personality. He rarely interacted with his audience, with the exception of always having a pinned comment link to his Patreon, which, when you paid, would grant you access to the full uncensored videos and games. This channel wasn't even trying to hide the sexual content within, with most of the thumbnails being incredibly explicit, even if you weren't familiar with the fetishes at play. This entire situation, not only with Kphoria, but with Kphoria and basically every other name mentioned, is a point that Frankie made on her video on the Big Knees guy, whether it is moral or not to show people subtle fetish art, as generally it's thought that if you are posting fetish art for unwilling people to see, they should be informed that what they're consuming is, of course, fetish art, as it's made kind of morally gray when people are made to inadvertently participate in their fetish when one party is completely unaware. Some of these artists actually like the fact that they have unwilling participants in their seemingly innocuous art. Of course, the topic of children must also be brought up when discussing this issue, as when you use kid characters in your art, it will be found by children. This definitely depends on the platform, but places like YouTube are festering with young kids who consume anything that they can with a recognizable face. Kids are consuming a lot of fetish art on the internet, thanks to things like Elsagate, and all of the content and other controversies surrounding it. This whole issue of consent is more an issue of morals, as there's no way that you can really police what people see and when. YouTube moderation can only really do so much. Now, back to Kphoria. This sick individual had over 763,000 subscribers before being taken down, leading him to have some pretty stark notoriety, and eventually was found by people who were trying to eradicate this content off of YouTube. At the start of 2023, lots of people were reinvigorated within the search and destruction of Elsagate, and these same people found Kphoria and brought him to my attention. From there, people realized how egregiously this channel marketed its fetishistic pornography towards children. The thumbnails were bright and eye-catching, the titles were even more captivating with short and sweet exclamations of warnings, of things not being food or too much food as mentioned earlier. Anytime a character from something kids like could be mentioned in the title, they would. Kphoria would also rarely, if ever, give the information to the artist responsible for the games and animations, which on its own is incredibly messed up. Not only was he stealing people's work and displaying it to naive children, but was also profiting off of said work from YouTube ad revenue and his spicy See All Patreon. These artists pour so much time and effort into making this work, and whether you like it or not, don't deserve to have it stolen and repurposed and shown to an audience that's not made for. I can guarantee you that the majority of the artists who specialize in this sort of art do not want it to breach its target audience, being adults that know what they're looking for, and are just there to enjoy what they already enjoy. Many of these games are from itch.io, meaning that most of these artists only make a profit from external sources like Patreon. I stand with the artists completely here, as at least to my knowledge, the art used in this Kphoria content wasn't of little girls. These artists were making art for adults, of adults, and then got their shit stolen and repurposed to a younger audience. It's truly just wrong. This channel would break YouTube terms of service nearly every upload, but stayed up for far too long. In fact, this channel was up until right before I started writing the script, meaning he made it nearly halfway into 2024 before finally being taken down. It's truly shocking to me that YouTube saw this channel and verified it, and let him be a part of the partner program. Truly doesn't make sense in the slightest. Now, of course, his channel being taken down is a very good thing. Kphoria had no right to exist on this platform in the slightest. However, copycats who do the exact same thing have popped up and continue to do exactly what he did. Channels like Azrael Erolsholm, who again just upload porn on YouTube and barely censor it and make money from it, while also not crediting the original artists. This channel's top video has over 5 million views, titled "What? This is Too Much Food!" and features gameplay of an itch.io game by artist Hexalt. Listen, if he won't credit the art, then I will. Now, since this video has so many views, it would be a safe assumption that many of these views are from children, but this is only fully confirmed when we delve into the comment section. From the way that these comments are written, it's obvious that they come from little kids, with many of their profile pictures displaying children, who don't look like they're any older than 8 years old. Comments like, "That is me, but my belly doesn't get bloated, it just gets bigger, and the average 9-year-old is 40 pounds and I am 70 pounds.
Okay, that looks like Disneyland.
Bro, that is too much food! Stop! Not birth, that's food inflation.
What are you doing to this girl? How did she didn't puke? I should puke in no time because of it. I would get so much stomach pain. It's weird that she's not sick. Oh my god.
Wonder what happens if she gets too full. Would she turn into a blueberry?
This made me feel weird.
Reading these comments genuinely sent a shiver down my spine, as I realized where these kids are headed if they continue to watch these kind of videos. A lot of the comments on this video are calling out the fact that there's a lot of children in this audience and how wrong it is. I really thought for a while that this sort of fetish art wasn't as easily accessible to Gen Alpha and late Gen Z kids as it was to Gen Z kids growing up, but goddamn, it's just as, if not more, available than it was in the 2010s. It's just in a different form. Just like Elsagate, these Vore and Vore adjacent videos have bad actors using characters that are popular with children nowadays. Sonic and Mario are old news. Characters like Huggy Wuggy, boyfriend and girlfriend from Friday Night Funkin', Pomni from The Amazing Digital Circus, and the cast of mascot horror games like Garden of Banban are used everywhere. These videos are usually not safe for work art that has been stolen and used to milk views and add revenue off of children who got baited by recognizable colorful characters. Just like with Kuzmek and his knockoffs, the comment sections are filled with very, very young and confused children. This entire experience has taught me an incredibly valuable lesson. That being that the exploitation of children and their innocence is far larger and more rampant than any of us are really aware of. Now, whether it's an intentional plan to get children hooked on certain fetishes or just good old-fashioned greed, these children are being exploited. And we are seeing the effects of this with Gen Z and all the disastrous things that a lot of people in my generation have had to deal with because of unmonitored internet access. And it's completely heartbreaking. You have now heard their stories and see how real this all is. Listen, I want to speak directly with those who have been affected by this content and say that I hear you, and I am so incredibly sorry that any of this happened in the first place. It wasn't fair. You didn't deserve this. Nobody did. And I think we can all agree that none of us want this for kids growing up in the future. Not a single one of us. Because the way things are going, it's a perpetual cycle. Things are not going in the direction of getting better. In fact, they're just getting worse. Hearing your struggles and stories of exploitation and exposure to everything you shouldn't have been seeing really proves to me, and I hope everyone watching, that it's time for this all to end. It's time to stop. But just because things are really bad right now regarding this topic, that does not mean that they have to stay bad. It is time for us to stand together and use our strength in numbers to show YouTube that we are done with this. We refuse to let another generation grow up with this kind of content and be exploited. We are vigilant. You know the names now. You can go out and find exactly what is being discussed and do what you need to do. We also need to be clear that we refuse to let YouTube, what, at least in my opinion, is a fantastic platform, fall from grace like this. We can and will stand together and just say no to these people. Say no to these creeps exploiting the youth for profit, or even darker means. And we do all this by using our vote. And if you really think about it, we can harness the power of democracy to tell YouTube to enforce their own rules and get rid of those on their platform who hurt others. We've already seen Kuzmek get taken down by people like you and me reporting him and getting others to spread the word. We can use our vote and our strength in numbers to show YouTube that we do not want this, that no one wants this, and we will make a change. Not only do these people harm children, but they also steal art and do not credit it, leaving struggling artists in a terrible position. YouTube Terms of Service states specifically, explicit content meant to be sexually gratifying is not allowed on YouTube. Posting pornography may result in content removal or channel termination. Videos containing fetish content will be removed or age restricted. In most cases, violent, graphic, or humiliating fetishes are not allowed on YouTube. I think it's time that we help the people over at YouTube and make their job just a little easier. This video, and quite frankly, most of my work, is dedicated to the victims. It's dedicated to the people who were affected by all of this unmoderated fetish content all over the internet that was shown directly to them by the YouTube algorithm. Things could have been different if YouTube knew what was happening and they actually enforced their terms of service upon these people, right? But they didn't. And for that, I'm incredibly sorry. But here's the thing. It's not over yet. Join me, and together we can defend the future from all of this unmoderated, unage-restricted content drivel slop that's being shown to the youth. Although, I need to also be very, very clear that I'm not asking you to go out and harass anyone mentioned here. That's not going to fix anything, and it's not going to help. If anything, it will hurt the cause. I want you all to operate in the shadows with a clear and direct motive. And I understand that hearing about all this may be very, very upsetting and triggering to a lot of people. But I ask you that you keep those emotions in this comment section and not directly bring it to the people who have been discussed. This case is something that I have a lot of personal investment in, not only because I witnessed it in my youth, but because I've seen the aftermath and the way that it affected so many people. And like I said earlier, it's completely heartbreaking. It's truly disheartening to see how heavily so many people were affected. But the bright side is that the future is in our hands now. We can prevent this happening again. And the way that we make this change is through widespread awareness. It doesn't have to be this video, it could be just telling a friend about this, or a parent, or a family member, or anyone who has children who could be exposed. Granted, this is the only video, at least so far, talking about this, but it shouldn't be. So if you are also a content creator and you feel passionate about this, I implore you to do your own research and come to a conclusion and potentially help spread the word. Because the time is now to collectively put our foot down. Because if not now, when? If not us, who? When will change occur? Will it occur? I recently came across such a simple little adage that I feel rings very, very true. And that is, if nothing changes, nothing changes. It's simple, almost stupidly simple, but at the same time, it's incredibly true. That's why the time is now to come together as one. No matter what your beliefs are, no matter what we may or may not disagree with, something that should unite us all is protecting the future. And when we come together, we're far more powerful than any of us even really know. That's why I ask you for your support. Now, this is my least favorite part of talking to you now, and that is the inevitable ask for signal boosting. And the way to do that is doing what the YouTube algorithm likes, being subscribing, liking the video, and commenting, and sharing it to different people. It feels scummy and obnoxious to ask for that, but it truly is the way to get more people to be aware of this. And again, if you have a platform, I encourage you to spread the word as well. Whether it's YouTube videos, TikToks, Instagrams, Twitter, I don't care. As long as you're out there and saying something and trying to make a difference, that's what matters. It is time for us now to come together with the collective goal of defending the future. If you've watched me for a while now, you know that defending the future is one of my most passionate topics. And that's because I work with children, right? I'm personally involved and invested in how they come up and how their future is built. There's an immense amount of care for their innocence and the trajectory of their life, which is why defend the future feels like such a unifying phrase to me, because effectively that is what we are doing. Everyone now who is being affected by this content are the people of tomorrow. Generation Alpha will be the leaders of our world, and we cannot let them down, especially considering how many setbacks they're already facing. Whether it's Elsagate, Incredigate, Kphoria, or anything else that stands in the way of a child's healthy development, we will be there to fight back as best we can. So if you decide to spread the word, I would really appreciate the use of the Defend the Future hashtag. Ultimately, whether or not anything changes depends on you. I'm doing everything I personally can, but I'm only one person. In the end, the choice is yours.